I had always been drawn to the unexplained. Maybe it was the thrill of piecing together a puzzle or the allure of uncovering a truth hidden beneath layers of fear and superstition. Either way, when I first heard about the mysterious disappearances at the Crossroads just outside of town, I knew I had to investigate. The locals spoke of it with a mix of dread and reverence, as if the place itself were alive and watching. It was an unassuming intersection of two dirt roads, flanked by thick woods on all sides. But the stories surrounding it were anything but ordinary. People said that over the past few months, several travelers had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only whispers of their last known whereabouts. More intriguing were the symbols. Strange markings had begun to appear on the trees and the ground around the crossroads. Intricate designs that looked like they had been etched with purpose, yet no one claimed to know their origin. Some said they were signs of occult rituals, others believed they were warnings left by those who had come before and never returned. For me, this was more than just another story to chase. There was something personal about this case, something I couldn't quite put my finger on. Maybe it was because I had passed through those very crossroads countless times in my youth, visiting family in the countryside. Or perhaps it was the memory of an old friend who had disappeared years ago, her car found abandoned near those same woods. As I packed my bag and prepared to head out, a sense of urgency gnawed at me. I needed to understand what was happening there, to see if the stories were true or simply the product of overactive imaginations. With my notebook in hand and a camera slung over my shoulder, I set out for the crossroads, hoping to find answers, or at the very least, some semblance of truth. As I drove up to the crossroads, an uneasy stillness enveloped the area. The usual sounds of nature, the rustle of leaves, the chirping of birds, were conspicuously absent, replaced by an oppressive silence that seemed to press down on me from all sides. I parked my car at the edge of the road and stepped out, immediately feeling the chill of the air despite the summer sun overhead. The symbols were even more unsettling up close. They were etched into the bark of the trees, spirals and lines that formed intricate patterns, their edges sharp and deliberate. Some had been carved into the dirt itself, circling the intersection like a protective barrier or a sinister trap. I snapped photos of each one, trying to capture the sense of malevolence they seemed to exude. As I moved through the area, an inexplicable sense of being watched crept over me. I shook it off, telling myself it was just nerves, but the feeling persisted. I decided to head into town, hoping to speak with some locals and gather more information. In the dim light of a small diner, I struck up conversations with anyone willing to talk. Most people were reluctant, eyes shifting away as if speaking about the crossroads might summon its curse upon them. But a few, emboldened by my curiosity, shared their experiences. One old man, his voice a hoarse whisper, claimed to have seen ghostly figures drifting between the trees, their forms barely more than shadows. A woman, clutching a cup of coffee like a lifeline, recounted hearing voices in the wind, soft and pleading, as if the very air carried the cries of the lost. Their stories painted a picture of a place steeped in fear and mystery. Superstition ran deep, and many avoided the crossroads entirely, convinced that whatever lingered there was beyond their understanding. Despite their warnings, my resolve only grew stronger. I had come this far, and I wouldn't turn back now. As dusk approached, I prepared to return to the crossroads, determined to uncover whatever secrets lay hidden within its grasp. The unease I felt earlier had settled into a steady resolve, and I knew that the night would bring answers, or perhaps, even more questions. As the sun dipped below the horizon, I found myself back at the crossroads, the air growing colder with each passing minute. The darkness seemed to deepen the silence, making even the slightest rustle of leaves sound like a thunderclap. I steeled myself, camera in hand, and began my exploration of the area once more. The symbols appeared more ominous in the dim light, their shadows twisting in ways that seemed almost deliberate. As I moved between the trees, the temperature dropped sharply, the sudden chill raising goosebumps on my skin. I paused, listening intently, when I heard it, a whisper, faint and distorted, as if carried by the wind from a great distance. It was impossible to make out the words, but the tone was unmistakable, pleading and mournful, echoing the stories I'd heard earlier. My heart raced, but I pressed on, scanning the shadows for any sign of movement. A flicker of motion caught my eye, a dark figure slipping between the trees, vanishing as quickly as it appeared. I tried to rationalize it, convincing myself it was a trick of the light or my mind playing games, but the feeling of being watched intensified. Fighting the urge to flee, I continued my search, driven by a growing determination to uncover the truth. Near the edge of the clearing, my foot struck something solid yet hidden beneath the underbrush. Kneeling down, I brushed away the leaves and dirt to reveal a small, weathered box. Inside, I found an old diary, its pages yellowed and fragile. The handwriting was faded but legible, recounting the thoughts of someone who had once lived near the crossroads. They spoke of strange gatherings held under moonless skies, rituals meant to appease or control a force they did not fully understand. One entry in particular caught my eye, a crude map detailing a path through the woods to an undisclosed location, marked with the same symbols I'd seen carved into the trees. The discovery sent a thrill of excitement through me. This was the clue I had been searching for, a tangible link to the mysterious occurrences at the crossroads. Despite the fear gnawing at my resolve, I knew I was closer than ever to unraveling the enigma. With the diary clutched tightly in my hand, I resolved to follow the map's path, prepared to confront whatever truth lay at its end. The diary in my hands was a key, and I was determined to unlock the mystery of the crossroads. The next morning, I made my way to the local library, hoping to find historical records that would shed light on the events described in the journal. The librarian, a kindly woman who seemed eager to help, directed me to the archives in the basement. There, surrounded by the musty scent of old paper and leather, I began to sift through newspapers, letters, and town records from decades past. It didn't take long to uncover a series of reports that matched the diary's entries, accounts of gatherings in the woods, strange lights in the sky, and disappearances that had plagued the area for generations. One article in particular caught my eye, a story about a tragic event at the crossroads nearly a century ago. A group of locals had attempted a ritual, intended to call forth a spirit that would grant them prosperity and protection. But something went horribly wrong. Instead of a benevolent presence, they unleashed a malevolent force that cursed the land, leaving it tainted and hungry for souls. The realization hit me like a cold wave. The strange symbols were wards, meant to contain the dark power that had been set free, but their effectiveness had waned over the years. The recent disappearances were a resurgence of that ancient curse, claiming those who ventured too close without protection. As I pieced together the history, a chilling thought crept into my mind: I might be the next target. The diary, the map, the voices I had heard in the woods, it all felt like an intricate web, drawing me deeper into a trap from which there might be no escape. Determined to break the cycle, I decided to visit the last person who might hold the missing piece of this puzzle. I made my way to the outskirts of town, to a dilapidated house belonging to an elderly woman rumored to be the last surviving member of the original group. Her eyes, clouded with age but sharp with awareness, met mine as I recounted what I had learned. She listened, nodding slowly, before revealing the truth that had been hidden for so long. The ritual had gone wrong because of a betrayal within their ranks, a betrayal born of greed and fear. With her guidance, I began to understand what must be done to finally lay the curse to rest. The tension in my chest tightened as I realized the enormity of what lay ahead. But armed with knowledge and the tools she provided, I knew I had to return to the crossroads one last time, to face whatever darkness awaited me. Armed with the knowledge and tools given to me by the old woman, I set out for the crossroads one last time. The night was cold and still, the air thick with anticipation. As I approached the intersection, I felt a familiar chill settle over me, more intense than before, as if the very ground were aware of my intentions. The symbols around the crossroads seemed to pulse in the darkness, and I could feel the malevolent presence lurking just beyond the edges of the clearing, watching, waiting. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for the confrontation I knew was inevitable. With the old woman's instructions echoing in my mind, I began to trace new symbols in the dirt, chanting the words she had taught me. My voice trembled at first, but grew stronger as I pushed past the fear threatening to overwhelm me. The air seemed to thrum with energy, the shadows thickening and shifting as if alive. Suddenly, the whispers returned, louder and more insistent. They swirled around me, a cacophony of distorted voices filled with anger and despair. I fought to maintain my focus, repeating the incantation and grounding myself in the task at hand. The shadows coalesced into a figure, a dark silhouette standing at the center of the crossroads. It radiated malice, its eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. I felt a deep-seated fear clawing at the edges of my mind, urging me to flee, but I stood my ground. As I completed the final symbol and uttered the last words of the ritual, a blinding light erupted from the markings on the ground, enveloping the crossroads in a brilliant glow. The figure let out a piercing shriek, its form disintegrating in the light until nothing remained but silence. Exhausted and shaking, I fell to my knees, the adrenaline coursing through me as I realized I had succeeded. The curse had been broken, the malevolent presence dispelled. Yet, as the light faded and the night returned to its quiet stillness, I knew that I was not the same. The experience had marked me, leaving behind a lingering sense of unease that I couldn't shake. As I rose to leave, something caught my eye, a new symbol etched into the ground, one I hadn't drawn. It was a subtle reminder, a hint that the darkness might not be entirely vanquished, or perhaps a sign that the shadows would always be a part of me. With a heavy heart, I made my way back to the car, knowing that I would carry the memory of the Crossroads with me forever. The curse was gone, but the secrets of that place, and the darkness within, would remain with me, a silent reminder of the thin veil between our world and the unknown.